Hi, hope y'all are well and welcome to another chat about potential future content in the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl series. This one follows two other ones where ideas about potential characters, stages, and alternate costumes were chatted about. This one will throw around ideas related to other potential gameplay modes and single-player content. But before getting into that, I want to take another peek at fighters already established in the series and throw around some ideas for possible changes. I don't have that many recommendations. I think the characters we have came out pretty great overall. I think some characters felt more samey when the game came out, but patches along the way have made nice changes. Like Garfield and Oblina are fantastic. I got no notes. Maybe some of y'all have some suggestions or ideas? I'm really interested in hearing any, but I personally can't think of many bonuses or changes they could get. And then there's little things, like I think it would be cool if Ren and Stimpy's fun expressions were even closer to their official concept art for the game, and I think I'd personally prefer if Powder Toast Man's neutral special didn't halt his momentum in the air. But I do think I have a couple of suggestions for a few characters that, could be fun. Personally, I feel like Spongebob turned out a bit held back. He feels capable of showcasing how unique he can be much more. He's super fun and I like a lot of his moves and expressions, but I do wish he had some more varied expressions and maybe some moves that made use of his absorption and shapeshifting. These are some fun, weird things he can do that no one else on the roster right now can. This chomp move is honestly, in my opinion, a little bit boring, and I would recommend replacing it with an absorption move, where Spongebob soaks up the water around him and then, well, he could do a couple of things. He could burst right on the spot, splashing water around, or he could shoot water that could push people or hit people from a good distance. Maybe he could even do both, and you can decide which to do by holding or tapping the special button. I think either of these options would be fair for the startup this would have, having to absorb the water. And I think when Spongebob has a bunch of water ready, he could walk around slowly, like he does in Nicktoons Unite. Then, while I like his simple kicks and punches on like his light up air and light down air, I think he could have the same knockback and juggling, but show Spongebob instead shapeshifting into stuff. He could shift into like a sail getting put up or an anchor getting let down. He could do lots of stuff. He shifts into so many shapes. A shape I love is when he splits himself in half and they spin around to come together again. He's done this a couple times, and I think it could fit as a light neutral air. This might need a bigger hitbox than the current light neutral air, but it could mostly do the same thing. Or maybe this would work better as a light up air, or even a new grounded neutral strong. I'm not totally sure. In the same vein though, his fun little jab punch, I think could be switched up a bit to be his bubble wand spin that he does in Battle for Bikini Bottom and Cosmic Shake. I think this could serve pretty much the same purpose as the current jab, but I guess I could also see it being just a bit slower and hit behind him too. His jab could also be replaced with a karate jab combo, but I personally like the bubble wand more because I feel like it fits how Spongebob is typically more playful than throwing out direct attacks. Plus, then he'd have a matching jab with his best friend Patrick, who also uses his basic attack from Battle for Bikini Bottom. But to show off a bit more of his karate, and also because absorbing water might be awkward in the air, maybe when Spongebob uses his down special in the air, he does a dive diagonally down, like in the Cosmic Shake. And when this hits opponents, he can bounce off of them, possibly leading to more fun stuff. I also think his grounded up light could keep the exact same knockback, damage, and timing of frames, but have a new animation where Spongebob flips the opponent with a spatula like they're a Krabby Patty, showcasing his fry cooking side a bit more. And while his heavy dash slip is fun, I think it could also be potentially changed to obliviously driving a little boatmobile or spinning out in one to reflect the boating school aspect of his life. And when holding strafe and inputting heavy dash, maybe you could get another version of this move where Spongebob yells that he's backing up, like in the pizza delivery episode. Lastly, I really like the bubble he blows for his neutral special. This is a perfect neutral special for him, and it's so fun to play with, slow enough to grab and throw or Z-drop. But maybe as a fun addition, I think it could be cool if the current bubble came out when you tapped the button, and if you held the button, you could blow bigger bubbles, like SpongeBob sometimes does to surround people, himself, or other things. To help visualize, maybe it could work kind of like Rano's bubble in Rivals of Aether. This could be a fun trap. Having someone cartoonishly left floating, or maybe barely saving a teammate with this, or getting someone ready for a simple big finishing hit, there could be a lot of silly, creative SpongeBob-y ways to play with this. I already really like playing as SpongeBob, and I think some of these changes could help SpongeBob feel a bit more like himself without taking anything fun of his away. Patrick also turned out pretty well. His spin feels super strong, while I've seen some other attacks get mostly ignored by players, so I wouldn't be opposed to some moves being adjusted. For one quick adjustment, I think after grabbing someone with his down special hug driver, Patrick could have a hitbox through the air that hits people a little bit, but also definitely another that hits hard when landing. Like how some characters in Smash land with hitboxes after carrying opponents. One big change I'd recommend is that Patrick is built to naively overdo it a bit and have command grabs for all his specials. For most characters, 1 or 2 is usually enough, so for Patrick to go overboard and try to grab this much is really cute, but I would also be down to mix things up a bit. I think the most redundant is probably the neutral special. It's mostly used to punish the opponent with 24% out of shield, but it's neat you can pretty much decide if you want to send opponents to the left or right. I think this could be replaced with a new neutral special where Patrick picks up a watermelon or a throw fruit like he does in Battle for Bikini Bottom. I imagine this could kind of be like how Peach and Daisy play with their turnips in Smash, though I think Patrick should be able to get a watermelon in the air too. You could get nice shots throwing the watermelon at people, but I also like imagining that this could be used to mix up Patrick's recovery. Patrick can up special as much as he likes if he keeps successfully landing it, so maybe when recovering, Patrick can toss a watermelon, aim for it, grab it, and up special again from a new angle. I'd also like for Patrick to be able to hug drive his watermelon, which could be used for recovery, but could also let Patrick make hard reads speed slamming across the stage with a landing hitbox like this. I think it could also be fun if there was a rare chance to pick up a freezy fruit, which could be used to freeze opponents or make part of the stage slippery. So if you hit an opponent directly, I think they should freeze right on the spot, but if you hit the stage and freeze part of it, then I imagine it could work kind of like how ice works in multiverses, where being there would hurt someone until they've taken like 5 bits of damage in a row, and then they freeze entirely. Keeping someone in one spot seems tough, but if Patrick could do it, then I guess he'd earn a free hug driver or whatever else the player might want to try. And rarely, maybe Patrick could pick up a Thunder Tiki, or even more rarely, he could pick up Gurr or a Tommy Ball or something. I also think Danny could get a few changes. Personally, I'm not much of a fan of his up special. It's slow, the way it stops on a dime goes against how flowy Danny usually seems, and I don't think it's even from the show. It's nice he can kind of fly around with his strong up air, but I still think his up special could let him go into some flight mode and he could go through walls with it. And maybe for his neutral strong, the Fenton Thermos, a ghost could be animated flying out of it and quickly fading away to justify it sending opponents away, because typically it's used to suck opponents into it. Or the Thermos could become a command grab, sucking opponents in and shooting them back out, either forward or maybe some other directions, kind of like how King K. Rool's Blunderbuss works in Smash. Also, it'd be nice to fit in some more flashy poses for Danny, so maybe his simple jab could be updated to be a jab combo. His hits and poses could be inspired by his jab combo from the Ultimate Enemy on the Game Boy Advance. I think the kick Danny does at the end of this jab combo, which was adapted from a kick he did in his very first episode, is a nice flashy pose to let him do here in Nick Brawl. Danny shoots a lot of rays too, so maybe his current neutral special happens if you tap the button, but if you hold the button, he could shoot a weak, simple but long-reaching ray. With the time it would take to shoot a ray like this, I think that would be enough to discourage people from spamming this, and give enough openings for opponents to jump over and punish Danny if he is trying to spam. Danny's down strong could also be a bit more interesting in my opinion. Maybe it could be replaced with something like setting down a layer of ice, working like the multiverse is freezing again, or making the floor too slippery to jump from, or chilling opponents, slowing anyone that touches it down for a short amount of time. There's plenty of ways a little frozen part of a floor could work. Or his current grounded down strong could stay the same, but offer the ability to keep flying low to the ground if the button is held down, sneaking under some projectiles and catching opponents. Kind of translating the way he'd go intangible and get past projectiles and rush opponents down in the show, without actually being invincible. Lastly, as shown by Hydro Plumber on Reddit, Danny could look a little better in 3D. Lucy is pretty great overall. I think she could get some changes. Like, when I play her, sometimes I wish I didn't have to bite people to change modes. I want to shoot bats right now, but I mainly think about how her Vampire Mode Up special isn't too interesting or fun to play with as it is right now. Maybe she could keep the concept of flying a shorter distance with an added hitbox, but instead flap some vampire wings of her own, kind of like Kazuya's Up special, or get launched up out of her coffin for a similar, short, scary burst of power. And also maybe her Ghost Mode Up special could go through walls on its way up. I think it could be fun if Aang had some funny wind boxes to play with, which I think could be done in a not annoying way. As an airbender, pushing people away or toward him or wherever by bending air would, I think, make him more unique, himself, and fun. Whipping people up into the air when they may prefer to use a grounded move or struggle with landing sounds like a unique and strong tactic perfect for Aang. Also, Aang's Avatar State move should probably be better, but I don't know, I also love it, so maybe you can just have less head lag or something. And I feel like Korra could use her bending in more unique ways too. She does some amazing stuff. I love gliding across the stage with earthbending, but right now she mostly punches and kicks with different strength and bending effects when buttons are held down. I think they could fit some more cool stuff she does from the show into her moveset. Like, one of the most memorable moves I remember her doing from the show is rising from whirlpools. I already really love her up special punch that lets you act out of it when you hit someone, but maybe this whirlpool rise could be used for a chargeable grounded up strong, going and launching Korra further the more it's charged. For a possible new down strong, I like this earthbending move she does. Maybe she could pop people straight up into the air with this. She could also whip up some projectile tornadoes to catch people in, that opponents could grab or reflect, since this is Nick Brawl, and maybe Korra could sustain a flamethrower somewhere in her moveset if you hold a button. Ooh, and she has ice too, which, as discussed, there's plenty you can do with that, but yeah, she could rain down some icicles or something. Her neutral strong isn't used so much right now, so maybe that could be replaced or upgraded, and the animation is cool, but her light dash is also awkward to the point where I see people avoid it. Also, while I like the idea of her down special and how it looks super cool, it doesn't really have much use right now either. The way you have to take time to stop it makes it feel sorta clunky. But I think making it able to be cancelled on hit could be enough to spice it up. Other than all that, I'd personally prefer the Turtles have their Rise versions as their main designs visually and for gameplay, and yeah, I guess that's about it for this section. There are probably more nice little changes here and there, and again, maybe y'all have some great ideas, but these are most of the thoughts that came to mind for me. So, with all these cool characters, potential moves for them to do, places for them to go, and outfits for them to wear, what do we want to do with all this? Fighting like they already are is phenomenal on its own to me. I really don't want much at all about the gameplay itself to change. I'd love for Ludosity to keep helping if they want. I trust them with the gameplay, they did a terrific job. I love grabbing being good and being able to do it in the air. I love grabbing and reflecting projectiles, I love air dashing so much. I love how the game is built to let people be airborne frame 1, making wave dashing as simple as holding a direction and pressing 2 buttons at the same time. All of this is fantastic and designed to encourage dynamic gameplay, which in practice has worked. Every tournament I catch is so fun to watch. I'm playing and watching a dynamic game and I love it. I love it so much. I wasn't sure about infinite blocking before the game came out, but with pushback and teetering and grabbing being good, it really works. I guess I was always the most unsure about the rock, paper, scissors mechanic, how strongs can beat each other out and stun the opponent, and I guess I wonder what the game would be like without it sometimes. But I have some great clips and memories because of this mechanic, so yeah, it turned out pretty fun and interesting. I don't feel like any changes required. I also sometimes see people say that adding dodging would be cool, but personally, I really don't want to see any dodges added. I think the game we have right now encourages good movement and interaction way more because dodges are missing, and I really like that. If anything else, Multiverses isn't really for me gameplay-wise overall, but I did really like holding attacks in the air while maintaining build-up momentum and letting go at just the right time. So if charging some attacks like that was implemented, I think that could be fun. Fight to fight, I don't think the game needs much change, and I hope not too much changes, but for the game around the game, I'd love to see some additions. I think sharing those showcase videos online and making some tutorial and moveset reading information is nice, but I've still fought a few people online that don't seem to know how to use different kinds of attacks or recover back to the stage, and I wonder if something like Slap City's tutorial would help. First time booting up the game, Slap City has the player run through a short little level that clearly explains some basics to them and lets them try out what they've learned as their title welcomes them to their world. I think this is a fantastic intro, and then there's more reading material, some of it even including secrets specific to characters, for players that want to delve deeper. If Nickelodeon Brawl had something like this, sure, there would definitely be some players that would skip by and not really care about this, and that's fine, have fun and learn how you want, but I think there would be a good amount of players that would appreciate a short tutorial like this and at least realize quicker how to recover back to stages. It would also be great if you could fight computers online with friends. I have some buddies that like trying out the game every once in a while and have no interest in fighting strangers online or attending a tournament. They just want to throw items around or try out goofy stages with a friend. And rather than being made to fight me and me not knowing if I should hold back or how to, it would be great if we could be a team against some computers online. I think that would be a greatly appreciated addition. There are plenty of players that aren't looking to attend tourneys or even ever fight online, and that's perfectly valid. And another thing I think a lot of people like that, and people that do want to fight more competitively, and all sorts of other people, could enjoy is character-specific interactions. When I heard the developers behind Slap City were involved with Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, I got hyped for multiple reasons, and one of them was because I love the character-specific interactions in Slap City and thought we might get some in Nickelodeon Brawl. I think a lot of people get some enjoyment out of hearing Solid Snake defend Luigi, or Ghost Rider warning Phoenix Wright about how many lawyers are in hell. I know I do. And sometimes these little lines of dialogue can showcase part of a character's personality that might change your opinion on them. Some Asha interactions gave me the impression that he was sort of a grump inconvenienced by all the fighting he had to do, but then I saw his win quote against the Goddess of Explosions, annoyed at her holding back and insisting they have a real fight, and I like that. To me that made him cooler. It's amazing that Nickelodeon gave the devs enough freedom to influence the roster and implement things like wave dashing, but it's unfortunate they were really restrictive with what characters could wear and what characters could say. There are plenty of new lines, like Spongebob saying, "Imagine this," as he does a rainbow kick, or even Hugh thanking the internet or shouting out the Hugh Nation, and that's great, but no character really acknowledges each other. Spongebob's never like, "Hi Patrick," and a lot of the time they're just kinda oddly regurgitating some line they've said from their shows, especially in arcade mode. Like, yeah, they've said these things, maybe I even liked when they said them in those contexts, but a lot of them really come out of nowhere here, and I don't get it. Are these just awkward references? The voice actors get paid the same whether it's an old line or a new line, I imagine. I really don't get this. For whatever reason, there's the same stiff random style of dialogue in Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3, though I think it comes off weirder there. I don't think they got as much new dialogue. I was doing some challenge with Arnold, and he kept calmly bringing up this complete non sequitur about how his neighborhood was voted the hardest trying neighborhood or something. Like, what is he talking about? I don't really get why Nickelodeon has preferred dialogue be like this, or if they feel like it has to be like this. I don't know, but hopefully in the future we can get some fun interactions between characters. I try to write a few myself, which I can share here, and I'm interested if any of y'all have some ideas for interactions or any other non-specific dialogue options. It's fun to consider what Cora might say to Spongebob, it's fun to consider all sorts of Luann jokes, and there could even be specific interactions dependent on the alternate costumes. Like SpongeGar surprised by the fire Zuko's bending, or SpongeBob having a special non-specific line if he's wearing his bunny suit alt. And if this does become a feature, I'd also appreciate these lines of dialogue being cataloged somewhere in the game, so I can see an interaction I like without having to find it on YouTube or play another quick fight. This would help too if you forget who said what to who exactly. I've had that happen a bit when vaguely remembering dialogue I've liked from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Another nice thing that could be cataloged might be notices. I'm obviously very influenced by Smash Melee. I think it's still my favorite overall fighter single player. I loved taking the memory card out and unlocking character stages, trophies, and notices over and over again. I understand that the devs of Nick Brawl would rather not have characters and stages have to be unlocked, especially for tournament convenience, and that's totally fair, that makes a lot of sense, but maybe we could have little notices pop up every once in a while with little comments or jokes. Like, for example, you've spotted a blue jellyfish, a shockingly rare sight to behold, or you've brawled at the cuddly crab 15 times, it doesn't get any more choral than this. Or a simple, you beat arcade mode with every brawler, congratulations. I think these little notices would make the game feel more alive. I've liked looking back in Smash and seeing I did some things on the same day, or saw the date a notice was attached to and I remembered, oh, a friend actually came over and did that one. Even now, I'm still in awe of how limitless Smash Melee feels in part thanks to notices like these. Only recently did I learn that there's a little notice you can get for playing 1,000,000 versus matches. Some of these notices could come along with unlocks, like, hey, you fought at the Krusty Krab 5 times, you might as well show up in uniform. And then you unlock little Krusty Krab hats for Spongebob and Squidward. And maybe if you fight there like 20 times, you can get another notice like, you've taken your business to the Krusty Krab 20 times. To meet demand, they're hiring. And then you get those little Krusty Krab hats for Patrick and Sandy, who have worn them more rarely. You could also unlock more profile pictures. With or without notices, we have some profile pictures you can display online, and why not have more? Put a bunch more if possible. In fact, I would love to see this expanded into having full profiles. I played Mario Party Superstars, where, as a nice bonus, they let you build profiles where you can display your favorite character, favorite board, favorite minigames, and choose a fun background, title, and other fun stuff. I really like this and think it would be fun in all sorts of games, including Nick Brawl. I think it would be great to build a profile where you can pick out stuff like your favorite show, favorite stages, favorite characters, not just restricted to fighters either. Pick out what music you want to play while people check your profile out, pick out backgrounds and titles you may have unlocked by doing little challenges, or just accidentally got as you've played the game. And Smash has these cool records that keep track of data like how often you've played characters. Like Marvel vs. Capcom 3's license cards, maybe in Nick Brawl you could have this record data on another page of your profile. Just some simple things like how often you've played each character or how much you've played each stage, including variants. Cool data and preferences to see. Like right now, I think Powdered Toast Man is definitely my least played character, but maybe I'd be surprised and interested to see that I've played someone else even less. Personally, I want a lot of pleasant surprises. I want to unlock a lot of things by accident, but it could also be fun to have some of the things needed to be done listed out on some sort of challenge board. Tasking you with all sorts of things across all sorts of game modes, a clear sense of progression as you see different things like beat this mode as a Spongebob character on the hardest difficulty, or play on this stage 3 times, and getting notices, alt costumes, profile materials, and whatever else along the way. It could be fun if some of these new modes were more battle modes. Right now they're stock, time, and sports, and you can turn on teams, items, and critical KOs, which can mix up any of those ways to play more. As another potential battle mode, I always liked stamina mode in Smash, and I think it makes sense to have in any platform fighter. Instead of racking up the opponent's damage and knocking them out, now you try to get their HP to 0. Here, characters could explode each stock they lose like they do when critical KOs are on, but when they lose their last bit of HP on their last stock, I'd really like their bodies to stick around, like in Smash games before Ultimate. It was always cool to me to try to use fallen players in unique ways, like having them take a hit for you, or maybe messing with someone's recovery by kicking a fallen player in their way. There could also be a tag team mode if systems can handle it, inspired by Marvel vs. Capcom, where you choose 3 characters you want to use and you could tag out your current character for one of your other 2. Sort of like Pokemon Trainer in Smash, but with more control over which character you're switching to. Each of your 3 characters could have one of their own stocks, and all keep their own damage. If they get their stock taken, you fall back on your other 2 characters, and if you're out of characters, you lose. I'd love to make teams and see other people's, and see how the characters work together, pulling off sequences with favorites, like grabbing someone with LT Gray and setting them up to get hit by a meteor from Dib, and then finishing off with Kitty ready to blast. This would be fun to play around with, it would be cool to see how creative people might get with this, what their favorite teams might be. I'm no programmer, I'm sure this is way easier said than done, but I'm throwing around future ideas. Maybe this is for a more distant future with more capable game systems. Figured I'd mention it though. Other possible ideas to throw around, maybe a reverse knockback mode where every move sends the opposite way it usually does, or some switcheroo mode if possible, where you switch places with someone every time you hit them, making for some really weird possible combos. Also, if possible, I think it would be cool if some of these options could be set on fighters individually. Sure, time and sports are going to affect everyone, not those, but would it be possible to have one character able to be critical KO'd while another can't, or to have one character use the damage system while another uses stamina? If so, I feel like those could be more options to level the playing field with more casual opponents. Another feature I feel like I'd cherish is, along with unlocking notices, alternate costumes, profile pictures and stuff, I'd love to find collectibles. I guess that would be the right word. I'm trying to communicate the concept of trophies from old Smash games, but like, we don't need all the 3D models and stuff. I'm not sure what the general feeling on trophies and spirits are, but personally, I just want to read some little descriptions and fun facts related to whatever collectible I got, so spirits are a bit of a letdown. There are some characters I saw for the first time as trophies, and it's been fun to read up on them and others a little and share with friends what I found interesting or the cute jokes people wrote in. I think something like this could be fun in lots of things, including again, Nick Brawl. I tried to write out and put together a few examples myself with the theme that this is intel you're collecting. It of course doesn't have to be that, I just went with a spy thing for it at one point and I don't feel like changing it, but yeah, you could get these by playing through different modes, doing different challenges, and I think these could be really entertaining, charming, or interesting. Now for some new modes where you could unlock all these things that people could speedrun and that could just be fun completely on their own. How about something like Slap City's Smack the Crystals or Smash Melee's Target Tests? Modes like these always show off more the platforming aspect of platform fighters, which is neat. I would prefer for each character to have a personalized target stage, like characters in Smash Melee had. Partly because I think it was a cool way to teach players about the characters. I remember as a kid learning that Ness could control his up special because he kinda had to learn that to break one of the targets. And I think a lot of people may have gotten stuck on young Links, like me, completely unsure of what to do until they accidentally learn about wall jumping. You could have a target test for Patrick that teaches the player about how you can reuse his up special on hit, or how his hug driver can hit around with a landing hitbox if that change was implemented. Having individual target stages for each character would be cool to see for speedrunning too, I think. But if this is too daunting, then some general target test stages could still be neat, and this mode could also be given some new name like Bullseye Blast or something. Taking inspiration from Smash again, I loved event matches. There would be specific goals or themed battles you might not see anywhere else in the game, like having to protect an egg or win a fight where you can only hit with Pokemon. There could be a list of special matches like that here with unique rewards and speedrun potential. One could be that you're Zim and you lost your disguise, and of course now this weird reporter lady is trying to get a picture of you for a news broadcast. You'd have to beat her without getting hit by any of her camera moves, or your identity's exposed and your invasion's ruined. In another potential match, you're Powdered Toast Man, and this dastardly villain is terrorizing this poor innocent youth at a theme park. Protect the child and take down this villain for justice. Alt costumes help a lot to create new scenarios too, like Jimmy's time machine has malfunctioned and now you must defend yourself from these fascinating prehistoric specimens, which are Spongebob and Kitty Cat'swell in their prehistoric outfits. Or you could fight a gauntlet of robots Vexus has recruited, like Robot Spongebob, Robot Gordon and Waffle and Mr. Blick, Robo Reptar, and more. And I guess instead of calling these event matches, these could be called special episodes or something, since these are all TV show characters. Another new mode that could be fun could be something where you're given limited space and have to survive by dodging all sorts of walls and platforms coming your way. I guess that Mario Party jump rope minigame kinda popped into my head and got me thinking of something like that for Nick Brawl. I imagine this could be single player and you could measure your success by how many things you've dodged or how much time you've survived for, but this could totally be multiplayer too. You and your buddies, with whichever characters you choose, could see who survives the best against all these obstacles. This could be another way to play together with friends that aren't as interested in combos or the more competitive parts of the game. Platforms rise from the bottom, walls come from the sides, Nickelodeon slime can come push people around, things get faster and faster, and that's the mode, I guess. You get pushed off, you're done. A little mode like this could be fun, a simple minigame challenging reaction times and decision making. The name doesn't matter that much, maybe you could call this like the Dodge Lodge or something. For another possibility, well, I tried to think of something where the thrill of unlocking characters could be contained in a mode so that I and anyone else that loves it could experience it over and over again without actually having to lose any progress, and without making it a part of the overall game, inconveniencing tournaments and other people who just prefer all characters be unlocked already. So, I'm just brainstorming here, but how about some sort of gauntlet of progressively harder and harder challenges? You could choose one character you want to start with, and then choose between some different bounties, kind of like Smash Wii U's Special Orders mode. Some could be random and some could be themed, like fight these random characters on a random stage, or team up with Valerie to fight Dark Danny. Some could just be to try to break 5 targets in 20 seconds, and some can be to try to get from point A to point B with some obstacles in the way within a time frame. Some with items, some with stamina, a whole bunch of possible fights. Along the way, more often the earlier in the run you are, and more rare the later you are, challengers may be impressed with you and challenge you to a fight. You'd one-on-one fight them on their stage, like a classic unlock character match, and if you lose, it's okay. They just go away and they may challenge you again later, but you missed your chance. Cause if you win, you can recruit them. They'll join your team and you can freely switch to them before you attempt your next challenge. I imagine damage would carry over from fight to fight, and if a character loses, then you can't use that character anymore. They won't come back to challenge you and get re-recruited, they'll just sit on your menu defeated for the rest of the run. But if you have remaining characters, you could use them, and when you're all out of characters, your run is over. Maybe you could also pick up some items along the way. Like, hey, you beat that challenge in a specific time frame, so you get a Krabby Patty, which on your menu before you select your next challenge, you can use on one of your fighters to heal 50% of their damage. You could also get something that boosts your attack power for the next fight, or something that boosts your defense. You know, stuff like that maybe. I imagine this gauntlet would be endless. It would keep randomizing challenges and throwing in themed ones and stuff, and it would just go on getting harder and harder. It would be very important to let players leave the mode and come back to their runs later. You don't want to cut off their runs just because they wanted to fight a friend online or do whatever else. But maybe endless wouldn't be best. Maybe there'd be no satisfying sense of closure. Maybe you could choose if you want to do a 50 floor run or an endless run, and if you actually get to 50, it could ask you if you want to continue? Maybe it should have a cutoff of like 1,000, but like no expectation for anyone to even get close to that. Or maybe getting the rewards after losing in this endless gauntlet is enough closure. I don't know, I guess some details could be ironed out. I do think variants should count as their own characters. I'd like for them to have their own unlock character matches, like Squilliams could be at the fancy variation of the Krusty Krab. And it's just cute to see the character dynamics, like seeing best buddies Lincoln and Clyde team up against all the challenges ahead. So yeah, yeah, I guess this is supposed to be sort of a mishmash of Smash Wii U's special orders, the fun of unlocking characters, kind of recruiting as you go through random challenges like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, and the thrill of Pokemon Nuzlocke, trying to use the hand you're dealt as best you can. I think it'd be neat to hear that someone's going for the big 200, and then they're at 198, but they only have one character left, and it's Nigel, who they say they suck with, and then that's a fun high-stakes stream or Twitter thread. People are commenting which challenge they should do, and then that someone is actually the first person to ever get to the thought-to-be impossible 200. And then someone else comes along with a good chance to beat that record, and then someone else, and so on and so on. Maybe people could use a mode like this to have races to see who gets farthest fastest. Maybe it's a speedrun category to get to 100, and who knows what challenges are easiest with what characters. Like maybe someone's advising, hey, regardless of your skill, you should always be starting with Aang because he's fast. I'd love a mode that involves unlocking characters, and I think a gauntlet like this could be fun. There could also be some new big main single-player mode for everyone to go through at their own pace and enjoy. For a lot of people, a mode like this is probably preferred to be some kind of a story mode. This could be something more individual and bite-sized, like Smash Ultimate's classic roots or Slap City stories. I wonder how y'all feel, but for the most part, I do like modes like these a lot. Each character has their own adventure, and they can have platforming sections or specific dialogue and interactions motivating where they go in their story. I mean, I don't want to undersell Slap City stories by comparing them to like Bowser's classic route where he fights people for wearing red, but I guess I'm imagining something in between, because I think Slap City realistically has more involved stories because of its smaller roster. But yeah, like it'll do seemingly being framed, or Banjo and Kazooie fighting other duos in the game, Spongebob could try to have a normal day visiting jellyfish fields and showing up to work at the Krusty Krab, and find other fighters upset with him maybe because abrasive Spongebob has been going around making him look bad. He could also run into Korra practicing waterbending at jellyfish fields, or end up in the Ghost Zone after visiting the Flying Dutchman. And then other characters could have their own entirely different stories, like Nigel studying all the rare and fascinating wildlife on the roster. Or, for another potential option, there could be something more similar to Smash Melee's Adventure Mode. I love this mode. You jump across the Mushroom Kingdom, you go through a Zelda dungeon maze, you fight some people along the way, and sometimes special things happen based on conditions being met. I liked going through this mode again and again, getting high scores and character special end movies, end pictures, and trophies. I think it does go on a bit too long. Fighting 3 Nesses never felt super necessary, but some adventure like this exploring the worlds of the characters that also happens to earn you special profile materials, stuff to read about your character, and cute pictures like the ones currently unlocked through arcade mode could be great. Some work could be saved by an adventure like this not having to be individual. I mean, there's no rules, maybe there could be some differences based on which character you choose, but I'm imagining this is mostly the same adventure with whoever you choose. You could start with a simple Jellyfish Fields platforming section, trying to get to the end without getting zapped by jellyfish. Then you could fight Spongebob and Patrick, who tend to hang out there, and then see a little cutscene where the Flying Dutchman's ship approaches, leading you into a little boss fight against the Flying Dutchman. That could then lead into exploring a door on the ship that leads to the Ghost Zone. Or maybe instead, the Jellyfish Fields platforming section could lead to an easy boss fight against King Jellyfish, and maybe the Queen Jellyfish joins too on higher difficulties. After beating them, maybe the player gets water bended out to the surface by Aang, who was just practicing his bending. That could lead to a fight against Aang and Toph, and on higher difficulties, Aang's eyes can flash white as he enters the Avatar state, and past avatars flash by before zooming out to show that now the Avatar state eyes are Korra's, and you fight Korra in the spirit world. She could fight mostly the same, but also show off a few new boss-like moves. Then, being a spirit world and all, I guess this could also lead the player to end up in the Ghost Zone. Either way, the Ghost Zone can have a platforming section with generic ghost enemies to fight and secret paths to explore. Like some of Slap City's platforming sections, there could be keys that lead to new areas and secret outfits or music to unlock. It could be cool to have multiple paths that lead to different upcoming stages or a different order for some variety, but before the next stages, players could run into a fight with Danny Phantom. When the player knocks Danny out, Vlad can immediately pop up, trying to take advantage of the damage the player just took to steal an easier win. After beating them both, maybe on higher difficulties or if some secret condition was met, Dark Danny could appear for a fight too, with a few new special boss-like attacks, like ghost rays that sweep the entire stage. After this, I don't know, you could take doors to lots of places. Maybe Avatar Spirit World would come after this instead, or the player could go to El Tigre's Land of the Dead. Or you could somehow get accidentally abducted in the chaos of a fight between Zim and Tak during an Urkin invasion. You could get caught in the middle of this heated battle having to survive against Zim and Tak, while also dodging the lasers shot by Urkin ships flying by. This could then lead to a few different things, like maybe some Ren and Stimpy Space Madness platforming section, or you could see the Urkins are fighting with Vexus in the cluster as her ship flies by. Needing to escape, the player could hitch a ride, stowing away in her ship. There you could have another platforming section navigating through her ship as her cluster drones try to stop you from intruding. This section could be more techy. You could have to press switches or ride elevators, and ultimately end up at the front of the ship fighting Vexus herself, with a few more cluster drones helping her. On harder difficulties, or under some other conditions, Vexus could also have hacked Jenny on her side, expressionless and threatening. After fighting them, the ship could be left without a pilot and crash land on TMNT's Bellerophon. You could platform more in a pretty mix of tech and nature here, getting through Shredder's minions and leading to some TMNT boss. There are plenty that could be fun. I don't exactly know enough about who's more important or fun to fight, so I don't know, maybe it's Shredder himself. There are plenty of fun potential stages that could flow into each other like this, and there could totally be enough branching paths or certain conditions to spice things up with variety. For some more potential enemies and platforming sections, you could fight anti-fairies or pixies, or also some glitches from glitch techs. For a final boss, I think the blobby guy from some old Nick promos could be pretty perfect. There's a history there's some ominous vibe, and this blob shapeshifts into all sorts of stuff that could make for fun attacks. A car, a rocket, a lightning strike, a ball bouncing around, a butterfly, a dragon, so much could be done. But at some point I got an idea I liked even more that could still include this blob too. So I think it could be cool if wherever the player last fought, everything goes gray, and a light appears that makes a circle. And then some music kicks in, and it would become obvious to a lot of people that this is Rudy from Chalk Zone. I think this could be really narratively poetic, like every character on the roster is a cartoon. Fighting a cartoonist, having some art versus artist stuff going on could be really neat, like every character is overcoming some aspect of their existence, whether they understand it or not. The Chalk Zone theme already sounds like final boss music, and Rudy can draw anything to fight you. He can drop anvils and horseshoes like he did in his first episode, and he can draw toast that pops out of the stage. He could draw doodlebobs that rush around, or big enemies with low HP you could beat quickly, like Bully Nerd, and he can draw meteors or platforms and walls that get in your way, all sorts of stuff. In another phase, he could draw the Nickelodeon blob, and all those blobby moves could be done. But after all that, you could land one last hit, launch the blob, and see it splat into the stage. This could then lead Rudy to drop the magic chalk. As a reward for getting through the adventure, maybe you can unlock a cute little ending with your character involving what they might do if they pick up that magic chalk. Maybe something like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where they had little endings where most characters reacted to saving the world or specifically beating Galactus. So, maybe here you could see Lincoln be selfless, sharing the magic chalk with his sisters. Or you could see Spongebob gift the chalk to someone else because he already has everything he could ever want. And you could see Reptar just eat the chalk. I think this would be a fun way to show off more about each character and give players some nice stuff to collect and feelings of closure after their adventures. Also, the idea sort of popped into my head while I was treadmilling one day, but another fun way to let characters show off could be to have whoever the final boss is, maybe the blob, before the final phase of the fight ask in surprise something like, "Why won't you stay down? What's happening? Who are you?" Music could transition from a Chalk Zone remix in Phase 1 to a Nickelodeon Bumper remix in Phase 2 to music specific to your character for the final phase as they respond defining themselves, answering who they are. Some characters could have more serious responses while some could be more cute or funny. So yeah, not necessary, but I think this could make for some fun moments. There's plenty of potential, and I think an adventure mode like this could absolutely be super satisfying and fun. And of course, for another big single player option, and lastly, at least for this video, there could be one big story and cutscenes that involve all sorts of characters that you and maybe some friends could co-op through. I've seen some people imagine some kind of Smash Subspace Emissary, or even some continuation or similar vibe to the Nicktoons Unite series, and those ideas are really cool. Personally, I find myself having trouble getting super excited for something like that because it seems like too much to hope for, but I don't know, I think it's possible. I guess we're talking future, so even if I don't see it now for the next sequel, it's still an option for the next one, or if there's one after that maybe. Nickelodeon had these fun platformers with story and some fighting before. There could, with enough time and care, sure be another fun story with platforming and platform fighting. I won't rule out the possibility. I still remember and love Nicktoons Unite and Attack of the Toy Bots. Providing some mode, some story like that for audiences that have always carried their love for stuff like that, as well as new audiences, could be really cool. I don't think I'm the right person to think a full story through, but I can throw a few ideas around for some potential story beats and stuff. So, if there's some Nickelodeon crossover story, then a safe place to start it is with Zim messing something up. Nicktoons Freeze Frame Frenzy and Nicktoons Android Invasion are a couple of examples of crossovers that happen purely because Zim starts messing with universes. So maybe here in Nick Brawl, Zim is researching other universes and sees some villains like Vlad Plasmius and Vexus. Probably more like Shredder, but I just don't know him that well. These two I feel more sure about. Anyway, he can see him and be like, wow, they're strong, I should transport them here and take their powers. So he plugs Gurren to help with this universe device thing, and he brings Vlad and Vexus to his house. But then Zim's face drops as he asks Gur, why are they conscious? They're not supposed to be conscious, it's not easy to steal their powers when they're conscious. Zim can then try to use his security systems, and we can establish how threatening Vlad and Vexus are by seeing how easily they destroy them. Then, with no other options, Zim can make his escape, knowing the villains he just invited are too strong for him. He'll have to go off and get help to figure out some way to get his base back. Left alone with his advanced technology, Vlad and Vexus can explore it, seeing that in the right hands, they could properly take over not just this world, but many, many worlds. They could go through the files Zim had been organizing and see characters they may want to recruit, like Plankton. But I feel like with Plankton, they would see how often he loses to Spongebob and have a good laugh, deciding instead to just steal his tech. They could come across Tak, though, and see that she understands the Irken technology they find themselves in control of, and that she has this fire in her, hungry for revenge against Zim and hoping to prove herself as an invader, and ultimately find her valuable enough to recruit. At the same time, Dib can be outside hearing all of this and go to get help too. Gur, as glitchy as he is and still hooked up to this device, can be accidentally mashing universes together. And in those universes, Vlad and Vexus have sent their grunts to invade, cluster drones and generic ghosts. While Vlad usually fights on his own, he has hired or just threatened ghosts like these before. With Tak's help, they could probably get access to plenty of Sir units too. With all them going around, characters are kidnapped, leaders are overthrown, everyone everywhere is in danger. We could see a scene of the chum bucket being overtaken, Plankton thrown out as his tech is actually stolen. Next, we'd probably want to see characters sticking together, meeting each other, and planning how to fight back. It feels pretty natural to start gameplay with Spongebob and Patrick jellyfishing as usual until they see the villainous grunts invading. A player, and also a potential friend through co-op play, could pick who wants to play Spongebob and who wants to play Patrick, and then try to make it out of the fields in a platforming section featuring these grunt enemies and their little attacks. To heighten the drama even more, this section can end with Spongebob and Patrick getting separated, letting new players have characters they're kinda familiar with in two different parts of the story, and narratively we can get a touching reunion later. We could also see Lincoln, Clyde, and Lucy looking for people that have gone missing when they come across a garbage dump they don't remember being nearby. Then they can get startled by some eerie noises and scared by Oblina. I put a dumb joke here, but I think it could be cute to see Lincoln and Clyde scared while Lucy legit thinks Oblina is cool, and after an initial fight, they understand each other better and team up. Later in the story, maybe we can see Jimmy explain some stuff. He typically got people and plans together in some of the older crossovers. We could also see Plankton join the heroes, since the villains didn't recruit him and he needs help getting his stuff back. But surely he would be really frustrated with the circumstances. Maybe the heroes undervalue him as well, at least at first. So I guess you'd choose some characters you like or try out some other ones, go through stages platforming, fighting grunts, fighting bosses, maybe solving little puzzles, exploring, and having an adventure. There could also be some secret paths where you can find and save some characters, kind of like an Attack of the Toy Bots. They don't all have to be playable characters. Maybe someone you save just gives you a key or tells you about some other place they saw someone get taken and you unlock this secret optional platforming level with more unlockable stuff and maybe weird enemies unrelated to Vlad, Vexus, and Tak, like the glitch text glitches. And maybe there, you could find a character that you could recruit and play as, but doesn't necessarily need to be a big part of the story, like Reptar. He would be kind of hard to explain, so yeah. Maybe sorta like how there were a few characters to recruit in Attack of the Toy Bots or Smash Brawl Subspace Emissary, there could be some characters you could come across and recruit like this, with a small cutscene and no big explanation needed on how they're here. Some special paths could also only be accessed by certain characters, like some walls that only ghosts like Danny or Lucy if she gets in her ghost mode could get through, or gaps so big that only some characters could get across, like Hugh Neutron with his up special or Oblina by zooming. There were some cool moments in Slap City stories that made use of things only certain characters could do. A bunch of the Nicktoons games did stuff like this too. I always liked how it let characters shine in unique ways and kind of heighten the drama by splitting people up. Plankton could go in an exclusive section by being so small, but then he wouldn't have teammates to back him up, you know? Cool stuff like that. In these more secret paths, you could find secret music tracks, costumes, characters, maybe stuff for profiles, maybe some sort of secret dialogue, all sorts of stuff. And throughout the story, there could be so many cute scenes with characters interacting, like Garfield and Mikey sharing pizza and lasagna together, or Charlotte being on a team with Squidward, Rocco trying to politely scold some villains, and hey, you could have those boys Nicktoons reunite. You could also have some characters switch sides. I can imagine El Tigre being bad at first before redeeming himself by heroically buying the other hero's time as he fights Tak off or something. And I think it's plenty reasonable to imagine that the villains could definitely pay Mr. Krabs off. Mr. Krabs is a villain. He's saying about how he'd easily trade his time with Pearl for money, and he sold SpongeBob for 62 cents. It could be neat to see Plankton on the hero side and Mr. Krabs on the villains, which, yeah, could cutely frustrate Plankton again. Unbelievable that they wouldn't recruit him, but recruit Mr. Krabs instead? Until you think about it for a bit. You could have a Mr. Krabs boss fight where he has minions help him, and he's permanently powered up to have stronger moves because of the money he's already gotten, if they do actually go with a mechanic that I proposed for him in part 1 of these discussions, or just stronger damage and knockback if they don't. If you beat him, I imagine you could argue that a good sailor stays loyal to his crew, before someone pulls out $1 and convinces him to come aboard to the hero side. As you go on, things get tougher. Maybe you have to fight Vlad, Vexus, and Tak a few times, but they keep retreating and healing. There are also bigger ghosts and bigger, tougher cluster drones that could become more and more common. There could also be a scene where the villain's defenses are just too strong and the only way to get past him is in one small opening, and thankfully, the heroes have someone small enough that can just barely squeeze through. In this potential desperate effort, some fighters go distract the main villains, while Jenny, who has been upgraded by scientist characters like Jimmy and Sandy, has just enough battery power to shoot Plankton where he needs to go. With Plankton there's some triumph, but now what? Then he could see a self-destruct button, kind of like the ones he often uses for some reason, either because they stole his flawed tech and ironically it finally comes in handy, or simply great minds think alike. That could make for a satisfying arc near the end, and seeing Vlad and Vexus beaten by the heroes, including Spongebob, Plankton can rub that victory in knowing how humiliating it is. I think it also fits Zim's character to imagine him try to join the heroes while pretending he's completely unrelated to how any of this started. But then he can leave the hero's side if Dib exposes him, or after the heroes already beat the villains. If the heroes do knock the villains unconscious, Zim could yell that this was exactly how he planned it from the start and take their powers after all, becoming some cybernetic ghost Zim that takes control of the robots like the cluster drones and Sur units, can phase through walls, and be some big final boss maybe. Established and foreshadowed right from the start with one last twist. Yeah, that could be fun. Maybe Tak would even join the hero side just out of spite, hating Zim so much, which, if they are variants, lets players that liked using Zim still get to use his moveset. As a fun bonus for completing the story mode, I'd personally love to unlock a playable cluster drone or a Sur unit, or both as fighters, that you can use in the full game and all other modes. I mean, I guess they should be available from the start like everyone else if they actually are included. I just like how in some stories like Attack of the Toy Bots, if you do some completionist type stuff, you get rewarded by being able to play as one of the little enemies. Smash Brawl kinda did this too. Rob robots were generic enemies, and then one of the playable characters is a Rob robot with a full moveset. I don't think a bonus character like this needs a full moveset. I mean, they could have one, but a cluster drone or Sur unit could just mainly do the few things they would do as grunt enemies, like shooting lasers or doing little headbutts. Simple stuff that shouldn't take a lot of dev time. They could now have blocking and ledge animations, but they could also only have a light neutral air, no up or down air, stuff like that. Just some real simple and dinky little bonus characters that play like grunt enemies. So yeah, I don't have a fully fleshed out story written in my head, but those are some ideas. Hopefully they're sort of enjoyable and maybe get some of y'all thinking about some ideas y'all might like. I don't think we should get our hopes up for an actual story mode, those are so much work, but it's cool seeing other people's thoughts and there's no reason we still can't throw some ideas around, it's fun. And it's possible. Again, maybe there won't be a story mode in the next Nick Brawl, or the next one, or the next one. But I don't know, if the series keeps going like I hope it does, then well, maybe someday. Alright, that's probably enough for now. As I was making this, I thought back to how I said in my first Nickelodeon discussion that as a kid I would draw stages and cut out characters and have them jump around and pretend like it was Smash Melee. And then I realized that I was kinda doing that here too. My drawings are still pretty sloppy, but I do think I got a little better while making these. And throughout making these and those other big discussions, I mentioned how it was silly I initially wanted all of this to be one video, and good thing I split it up just for time and because they did feel disconnected. But it's neat how in the end things actually came pretty full circle. I definitely mentioned a bunch of characters, some of them just by name and didn't really get into, and a bunch of stages. I guess I could have went on, but it took me long enough to ramble this much. There are obviously so many other fun possibilities I didn't get to in these sloppy chats, like I think Mr. Krabs' dream from Battle for Bikini Bottom could be such a fun pretty stage. And Desiree from Danny Phantom could be such a cool fighter, she's a ghost genie. I guess it just felt weird for pacing to talk about these things, cause the SpongeBob section was already so long, and Desiree can do anything with magic, which is great, but then I was gonna get right into the Fairly Odd Parents section and talk about how someone else can do stuff with magic, so, you know, kinda felt weird. And I just fully forgot to mention or include Ember's Pirate Alt costume. I think it's great, and I had it loaded up, and I edited part 2 over and over, and I just kept forgetting. So here it is now, I think it's a cool costume. Whoop-de-doo. I know it's not that big a deal, but yeah, sorry for any sloppiness. And yeah, plenty of options I didn't even want to personally cover. But like, when I heard a bunch of y'all wanted Hugh Neutron some months ago, I was like, yeah, sure, give the people what they want. But I didn't really feel it, like, personally. Then he got announced, now I'm playing as him, and I think he's super fun. So yeah, I guess I'm just saying I'm open to whatever. I stuck to what I wanted to talk about, but maybe one of those Rocket Power kids or Mrs. Puff could be one of my favorite platform fighter characters ever. And I'm down to discuss more. I don't think I have to make any discussion this big again though. I am honestly pretty embarrassed by how long this took me. Drawing, that alone, I guess I'm slow at drawing, and I had a bunch of ideas I wanted to share, and now those ideas are nice and organized with a bunch of drawings here. And these turned out pretty alright, so yeah. I guess now maybe I'll focus on some smaller, more specific stuff. I don't really want to put pressure on myself, so no promises, but I think I would like to hone in on specific characters and explain full moveset concepts that I've already had fun thinking up and drawing in a notebook. Anyway, thanks a bunch for watching, and please feel free to chat in the comments. I would love to hear some of your ideas, or if you got favorite characters, stages, alts, modes, dialogue ideas of your own, or if you liked any of my ideas in particular, whatever. It seems like there has been some interesting news lately about a sequel, and I am very hyped for that, but even if for whatever reason that stuff's somehow fake and there's never a sequel, well, it's still fun to talk about this what if stuff, and what we've got so far has really been fantastic. Ludosity did great. This is my favorite fighting game gameplay I've personally experienced, and Fair Play Labs made some vibrant and pretty stages, and I've never seen Zim or Jenny ever look as good in 3D as they do here. When this game first leaked about 2 years ago, I thought it would be rough and I might skip it, but it could be the start of something great. And then I was so instantly impressed at how great of a start it already was. With the rollback netcode, the gameplay, caring to have competitive stages, the items we got are so fun, I love the results screen and the soundtrack, the renders are still so pretty, this game is an actual dream come true. I have so often, I guess you can ask people I've been in call with, I've just so often when playing this game, I just say out loud, I love this game. I've had a lot of fun going for clips and making my montages that I want to keep making, and I've had fun watching and winning some tournaments. I really like spiking people with Nigel Thornberry's up special, and I get to hear this great Royalwood Cemetery track while characters I love like Sandy, Jenny, and Cora fight with flashy combos and air dashing. The future's looking pretty great, and I do think we are going to see more, but I'm just really impressed and thankful for what we got so far. I think it's really cool. But okay, alright, that's enough. Y'all have been through enough of my rambling. That's it. No more. Thanks again for watching. Feel free to comment, and see y'all later. Bye!